The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Hundreds of representatives from the most powerful spacefaring races sat in rising tiers of seats, their voices mixing into a worried murmur. At the center of the hall, a hologram showed a swirling purple mass that seemed to eat away at the very fabric of space. Council leader Marcus Strong, the first human to hold this position, watched the assembled aliens with growing concern. To his right sat the massive frame of General Rock, a member of the warrior Stoneclaw race, his granite-like skin reflecting the light. To his left perched Admiral Swift of the hawk-like Sky Hunters, her feathers ruffled in obvious distress. The anomaly has already consumed 3 unmanned stations, reported the small, green-skinned science officer Peters, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. It's growing faster than our initial predictions suggested. General Rock slammed his stone fist on the table, making everyone jump. Then we must attack it head-on. Gather our strongest warships and destroy this threat before it grows larger. With all due respect, General, Peters replied, we don't understand what this thing is. Direct attacks might make it worse. Admiral Swift spread her wings in agitation. Are you suggesting we do nothing? Where is your warrior spirit? This threat challenges our honor. Marcus watched the back and forth with growing frustration. The warrior races that dominated the council always thought in terms of direct confrontation. It had served them well in past conflicts, but this was different. This wasn't an enemy they could shoot or intimidate. The hologram flickered, showing another storage station being pulled into the anomaly's purple depths. The crowd grew more restless. We need volunteers, Marcus announced, his voice cutting through the noise. A small team to study the anomaly up close and figure out what we're dealing with. The hall fell silent. Despite all their talk of warrior spirit and honor, no one stepped forward. The unknown nature of the threat made them hesitate. Then a new voice spoke up from the back of the hall. The Prudence volunteers for this mission. All heads turned to see Captain Tom Walker standing tall in his simple blue Earth uniform. He wasn't an impressive sight compared to the warrior races around him. No sharp claws, no tough skin, no natural weapons, just a regular human. General Rock laughed, the sound like grinding rocks. The Prudence, that exploration vessel that carries more safety equipment than weapons. This is no job for cowards, human. Walker walked calmly to the center of the hall. My crew has the best sensors in the fleet. We have experience studying spatial anomalies. Most importantly, we have protocols for approaching unknown phenomena safely. Safely? Admiral Swift scoffed. You mean fearfully, you humans, and your endless precautions. This requires bold action. Bold action against an unknown threat is just another word for suicide, Walker replied evenly. The Prudence may not be the most heavily armed ship, but we're the best equipped to study this thing without making the situation worse. Marcus studied his fellow human carefully. He knew the Prudence's reputation. Their missions had the highest success rate in the fleet, precisely because they were so careful. They never lost a crew member, never triggered an interstellar incident, and always brought back valuable data. The Council does not need scientists and cowards, General Rock growled. We need warriors. Walker smiled slightly. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you don't know what you're facing. The Prudence volunteers for this mission. Unless, of course, someone else wants to step forward. The silence that followed was deafening. The warrior races looked at each other uncomfortably, but none spoke up. Marcus nodded slowly. Then it's decided. Captain Walker, the Prudence will investigate the anomaly. Report your findings directly to the Council. As Walker left the hall, Marcus could hear the whispers of the warrior races, mocking the cowardly humans and their cautious ways. But he also noticed something else, relief in their eyes. Deep down, they were glad someone had volunteered. Walker's communicator buzzed as he walked out. It was his first officer. How did it go, Captain? Just as expected, Jack, Walker replied. They called us cowards, then let us do the job nobody else wanted. Prepare the crew. We've got work to do. The Prudence might not be the most glamorous ship in the fleet, but today it was humanity's cautious nature that might just save them all. The Prudence wasn't much to look at. Unlike the sleek warships of the warrior races, with their gleaming weapons and aggressive designs, it was built for function over form. Its hull was covered in sensors, and its sides bulged with extra safety pods and backup systems. Inside the ship's main briefing room, Captain Walker stood before his crew of 30. Behind him, detailed scans of the anomaly filled the wall screens. "This is what we know so far," he said, pointing to the swirling purple mass. "It's already destroyed 3 stations, and it's growing." Jack, his first officer, raised his hand. "What do the initial scans tell us?" "Not enough," Walker replied. "But that's why we're going to do something the warrior races would never understand. We're going to spend the next 12 hours preparing." Some of the alien observers sent by the Council shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them, a young stone claw named Grit, couldn't stay quiet anymore. 12 hours. The anomaly grows larger every minute. We must act now. Walker turned to the alien observer with patience. "Tell me, Grit, what would your people do?" "We would charge in bravely, weapons ready, and possibly make things worse," Walker cut in gently. "This isn't an enemy we can shoot. We don't even know what it is yet." The captain turned back to his crew. "Teams 1 and 2, I want you running simulations. Every possible scenario, from best to worst case. Team 3, study the data from the destroyed stations. Look for patterns. Team 4, prepare our drone fleet. I want at least 30 ready to go. The rest of you, check and double-check every system on this ship." The alien observers watched in growing frustration as the human crew split up to their tasks. Hour after hour passed as they ran simulations, studied data, and prepared equipment. The warriors paced nervously, muttering about human cowardice. In the drone bay, Linda, the chief engineer, was testing her latest modifications. "Each drone now has triple redundancy on its sensor systems," she explained to Walker. "If the anomaly affects electronics, we'll still get readings." "Good thinking," Walker nodded. "What about the new shielding?" "Installed and tested. If we lose a drone, at least we'll get data about how it fails." The warrior observers looked horrified. "You speak so casually about failure," one of them exclaimed. Linda smiled. "Because we plan for it. That's why we succeed." In the simulation room, the science team had created hundreds of possible scenarios. They watched as virtual versions of their ship and drones approached the anomaly in different ways. Most attempts ended in disaster, but each failure taught them something new. "Look at this," said Tom, the lead scientist, pointing to one simulation. "If we approach from this angle, using the gravitational field of the nearby moon as a shield." Hour 10 wrought a breakthrough. The data from the destroyed stations revealed a pattern in the anomaly's growth. It wasn't random. It followed a complex but predictable cycle. By hour 12, the Prudence was ready. Every crew member knew their role. Every system had been checked 3 times. Every possible scenario had been studied and planned for. Captain Walker gathered his crew one final time. "I know the Council races think we're cowards," he said. "They see our caution as weakness. But look around you. We're the ones going out there. We're the ones facing the unknown. And we're doing it smart." He paused, looking each crew member in the eye. "Being brave doesn't mean being reckless. It means facing danger with every tool and advantage you can get. It means respecting the threat enough to prepare for it properly." The alien observers had fallen silent, watching with new interest as the human crew moved with quiet confidence to their stations. "Prudence crew, take your positions," Walker ordered. "Let's show them what human courage really looks like." As the ship's engines hummed to life, even young Grit had to admit, there was something impressive about how the humans had prepared. He'd never seen such thorough planning before. Maybe, just maybe, there was more than one kind of bravery in the galaxy. The Prudence moved slowly out of dock, its enhanced sensors already gathering data. They were as ready as they could be. Now it was time to face the anomaly, not with reckless charge, but with careful, determined courage. The Prudence approached the anomaly at 1/4 speed, its enhanced sensors working overtime. Through the main viewport, the purple mass looked even more threatening up close, a swirling void that seemed to bend light around it. "Launch the first wave of drones," Captain Walker ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped his chair tightly. Linda, at the engineering station, pressed several buttons, launching drones 1 through 5. Basic sensor package only. The crew watched as 5 small drones moved ahead of the ship. Their paths had been carefully calculated based on the simulations. Each drone approached the anomaly from a different angle, gathering data. "First readings coming in," Tom reported from the science station. "Energy levels are off the charts, but there's a pattern to it. The anomaly isn't chaos, it's structured." Suddenly, Drone 3 vanished into the purple mass. The alien observers gasped, but Linda merely nodded. Drone 3's last transmission received and stored, exactly as predicted in Simulation 42. Walker leaned forward. "What did we learn?" "The anomaly didn't destroy the drone instantly," Tom said, studying his readings. "There was a specific sequence of energy spikes before it was pulled in. If we can decode that sequence..." 2 more drones disappeared, but each one sent back valuable data before being lost. The warrior observers watched in amazement as the human crew calmly recorded each loss, treating them as sources of information rather than defeats. "Sir," Jack called out, "I'm seeing something strange in the gravity readings. The anomaly isn't just pulling things in. It's processing them somehow." Walker nodded. "Launch the second wave. Heavy sensor package this time." 10 more drones moved forward, these ones equipped with more sophisticated instruments. They moved in a careful dance around the anomaly, staying just outside its pull while gathering detailed readings. "Captain," Tom's excited voice cut through the tension, "I'm detecting mechanical patterns in the energy field. This isn't a natural phenomenon. It's artificial." The revelation sent a shock through the bridge. Even the warrior observers fell silent. "Show me," Walker ordered. Tom brought up a complex diagram on the main screen. "See these regular pulses? They're like a heartbeat. And look at the way matter is being broken down. It's not random destruction. The anomaly is taking things apart at the atomic level, but it's doing it in a specific way." Linda studied the readings from her station. It's like some kind of machine, Captain. A very old, very broken machine. But what kind of machine would need to break down matter like this?" Jack wondered aloud. Walker thought for a moment, then turned to young Grit, the Stoneclaw observer. "Your people were among the first to explore this sector, weren't they? Were there any ancient civilizations here?" Grit nodded slowly. "The builders of the crystal cities lived here once, thousands of years ago. They were said to be masters of matter manipulation, but they vanished mysteriously." "Not vanished," Tom said quietly, still studying his readings. "They left something behind. Something that's still running, still trying to do its job after all these years. But it's broken, working wrong." The purple mass pulsed ominously, swallowing another drone. But this time, the crew could see the process for what it was, not just destruction, but a complex sequence of energy patterns. "It's trying to build something," Linda realized. "The way it breaks down matter. It's like a corrupted manufacturing process." Walker stood up, watching the swirling purple void with new understanding. "So we're not dealing with some mysterious space monster. We're dealing with ancient broken technology. Technology that can be studied, understood, and maybe fixed," Tom finished. "Or at least shut down safely." The warrior observers looked confused. Where they had seen only a threat to be attacked, the humans had found a puzzle to be solved. Their cowardly approach of careful study had revealed the truth that brute force would never have discovered. "Send this data to the Council immediately," Walker ordered. and prepare the specialized drones. If this is a machine, even a broken one, we need to find its control systems. The Prudence hung in space before the anomaly, its crew now facing not an enemy to be fought, but a dangerous malfunction to be repaired. It would take all their caution, all their preparation, and all their human ingenuity to solve this problem. And somewhere in the purple depths, ancient machinery continued its broken work, waiting to be understood. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was chaos. The massive hologram at the center of the hall now showed not one, but 3 purple anomalies, each growing larger by the hour. 2 more have appeared in populated systems. General Rock roared, his stone fists leaving dents in the council table. While the humans waste time with their careful studies, the threat multiplies. Captain Walker stood calmly before the council, the data from the Prudence display behind him. With respect, General, we've learned more in 2 days than a fleet of warships would have discovered in a month. And what good is your learning? Admiral Swift screeched, her feathers bristling. 3 trading posts are gone, and the evacuation of Border Station 5 is already underway. Council Leader Marcus raised his hand for silence. Captain Walker, explain what you found. Walker nodded and brought up a new image, a complex diagram of interlocking energy patterns. The anomalies aren't random space phenomena. They're malfunctioning terraforming engines left behind by the Crystal City civilization thousands of years ago. A murmur ran through the council chamber. The Crystal Cities were legendary, known for their incredible technological achievements. These engines were designed to break down matter and rebuild it according to specific patterns, Walker continued. They were probably meant to reshape worlds, to make them more habitable. But after thousands of years without maintenance, they're broken. Instead of reforming matter, they're just consuming it. Then we must destroy them, someone shouted from the crowd. That would be catastrophic. Tom, the science officer, stepped forward. Our simulations show that any attempt to destroy the engines would release all their stored energy at once. One explosion like that could devastate an entire system. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. There's more, Walker said grimly. We believe these engines are networked together. That's why new ones are appearing. As each engine activates, it sends signals that wake up others. Unless we stop them, this could spread across the entire sector. The hologram updated, showing predicted locations of more dormant engines. There were dozens of them, scattered across populated worlds and busy trade routes. The coward speaks of doom, but offers no solution. General Rock growled. At least in battle, we would die with honor. There is a solution, Walker replied quietly. But you're not going to like it. He brought up new images, detailed scans of the energy patterns within the anomalies. We found what we think are the original control systems. They're still there, buried deep in the energy fields. We believe we can access them, but it will take time. Careful, patient work. Admiral Swift's wings spread in agitation. Time. You speak of time while our worlds are threatened. Better than triggering a catastrophe through hasty action. Linda spoke up from beside Walker. We've already lost 30 drones studying these things. Each loss taught us something. Each careful step brought us closer to understanding. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and demands for immediate action. Council leader Marcus watched it all with growing concern. The warrior races were used to enemies they could fight. This situation was pushing them far outside their comfort zone. Quiet. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. Captain Walker, how long would your solution take? At least 3 days to safely access the control systems. Maybe another 2 to shut them down properly. Meanwhile, we need to evacuate anyone within range of the existing anomalies and set up detection grids to warn us if more activate. The council chamber filled with protests, but Marcus raised his hand again. And if we try it your way, General Rock. A direct attack. Tom stepped forward with a simulation. It showed a fleet of warships firing on an anomaly. The resulting explosion consumed everything within a light-year's radius. Sometimes, Walker said into the stunned silence, "The bravest choice is to be patient, to do things the right way, even when everyone is screaming for quick action." Marcus looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of the various representatives. They were afraid, all of them. But maybe that fear would finally help them understand that courage came in many forms. "You have your 5 days, Captain Walker," Marcus declared. "Show us what human caution can achieve." The fate of entire systems now rested on the careful, methodical work of the crew that everyone had called cowards. The real test of their courage was about to begin. The Prudence hung in space between 3 growing anomalies. Purple energy twisted and swirled around them, but the ship maintained its position, protected by carefully calculated gravitational fields. "Drone fleet in position," Linda reported from her station. She had dark circles under her eyes. None of the crew had slept much in the past 2 days. All 40 units ready for synchronized deployment. Captain Walker looked at the complex web of light lines on his display, showing the planned paths for each drone. They had one chance to get this right. Status of the control interface. Tom rubbed his tired eyes. "Ready, sir. Each drone is equipped with the codes we extracted from the ancient data fragments. If we're right about the control system's location, if we're wrong, we lose the entire drone fleet," Jack finished, "and our best chance of stopping these things." The alien observers watched in tense silence. Even young Grit had stopped calling them cowards, impressed despite himself by their relentless work. Hour after hour, the humans had refined their plan, tested their equipment, and prepared for every possibility. "What about the evacuation?" Walker asked. "Border Station 5 is clear," Jack reported. "The trading posts are empty. We've got a safety zone of 2 light years around each anomaly." Walker nodded and opened a channel to the council. "This is the Prudence. We're ready to begin our attempt." Finally, General Rock's voice boomed through the speakers. "After days of cowering and calculating, after days of making sure we don't accidentally destroy half the sector," Walker cut in firmly. "Starting countdown. All stations, final checks." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person following the procedures they had practiced countless times in simulation. Drone formation confirmed. Energy shields at maximum. Backup systems standing by. Emergency protocols in place. Walker took a deep breath. Launch drones. 40 small vessels moved out from the Prudence in perfect formation. They looked tiny against the massive purple swirls of the anomalies, but each one carried the hopes of the entire sector. "First wave entering the outer energy field," Tom reported. "Energy patterns holding steady. No sign of rejection." The drones moved deeper into the purple mass, following paths calculated from days of careful observation. 3 drones disappeared suddenly, exactly as predicted in their simulations. "Second wave compensating," Linda called out, adjusting approach vectors. On the main screen, the remaining drones shifted their positions slightly, using the data from their lost companions to refine their course. "We're detecting the control interface," Tom said excitedly, "right where we calculated it would be. Beginning transmission of activation codes." Ancient symbols flowed across their screens, the language of the crystal cities, painstakingly decoded from fragments of data. The drones sent the commands in perfect sequence, each one adding its signal to create a pattern that hadn't existed in thousands of years. "Energy spike," Jack warned. "The anomalies are responding." The purple masses pulsed brightly, waves of energy rolling outward. The bridge crew held their breath, watching their instruments. "It's working," Tom whispered. "The energy patterns are stabilizing. The breakdown effect is slowing." But then alarms blared. "New energy signature detected," Linda reported urgently. "Something's emerging from the center anomaly." A shape began to form in the purple swirls. Geometric, crystalline, alien. Part of the ancient machine was revealing itself. "Hold position," Walker ordered calmly. "Continue the transmission sequence." More crystalline structures appeared, forming complex patterns in space. The warrior races watching through the council feeds called for retreat, for weapons, for action. But the Prudence held steady. They had planned for this. They had simulated it. They knew what to do. Final sequence initiating, Tom announced. Control interface fully engaged. The crystal structures stopped growing. The purple energy began to fade. Slowly, carefully, the ancient machinery responded to commands it hadn't received in millennia. It's accepting the shutdown sequence, Linda reported, her voice full of relief. Power levels dropping in all three anomalies. The bridge crew watched as their careful plan worked exactly as designed. No desperate charges, no heroic last stands, just careful preparation and methodical execution. Sometimes, Walker said quietly, the bravest thing you can do is take your time and do things right. The first anomaly winked out of existence, its energy safely dispersed. The second followed soon after. As the third began to fade, even the warrior races had fallen silent, watching in awe as human caution accomplished what their bravery could not. The celebration in the Prudence's bridge was cut short by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed as new data streamed across their screens. Captain. Tom's voice was urgent. The shutdown sequence revealed something. There are more dormant engines than we thought. Many more. Walker leaned forward in his chair. Show me. The main screen filled with a map of the sector. Dozens of red dots appeared, marking the locations of hidden Crystal City engines. They were everywhere, beneath the surfaces of populated planets, inside asteroids, floating in seemingly empty space. How did we miss these? Jack wondered aloud. We didn't miss them, Linda explained, studying her readings. They were completely dormant before. But our shutdown sequence, it woke them up. All of them. The alien observers watched in horror as more purple anomalies began to appear across the sector, small at first, but growing quickly. The Council is demanding immediate action, Jack reported, listening to incoming transmissions. The warrior fleets are mobilizing. Walker shook his head. If they attack those engines, they'll trigger a chain reaction. The whole sector could be destroyed. But we can't possibly shut them all down in time, Linda said. Even with everything we've learned, there are too many. The bridge fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. All their careful work, all their preparation, and they had accidentally made things worse. Wait, Tom said suddenly. Look at these energy patterns. The new anomalies. They're not exactly the same as the others. Walker moved to the science station. Explain. The first three engines were damaged, broken by time. But these ones, they're starting up properly, following their original programming. Linda's eyes widened. The Crystal City's actual terraforming sequence. Exactly, Tom nodded excitedly. And look at this. They're networked. They're talking to each other. Walker understood immediately. If we can access that network, we could control all of them at once. Linda finished. The captain turned to his crew. How long to modify our control interface? An hour, maybe two, Tom said. But sir, this is incredibly risky. If we make one mistake in the programming, the alternative is watching the warrior fleets trigger a sector-wide catastrophe. Walker replied. We stick to our approach. Careful, methodical, but fast. The bridge erupted into action. Linda began modifying their remaining drones while Tom worked on adapting their control codes. Jack coordinated with ships in the area, keeping them away from the growing anomalies. Young Grit, watching from his observer's position, finally spoke up. You humans, even now you take time to check your work, to run tests. Especially now, Walker answered, reviewing the modified code. When the stakes are highest, that's when you need to be most careful. Another alarm sounded. Sir, the warrior fleets are moving into attack position, Jack reported. They're not waiting. Walker opened a channel to the council. This is Captain Walker. We need 2 hours. Just 2 hours to implement a solution that will shut down all the engines safely. 2 hours. General Rock's voice thundered back. The anomalies grow larger every minute, and they'll grow for 2 more hours, Walker said firmly. But then we'll end this threat permanently, without risking the entire sector. There was a long pause. Then Council Leader Marcus spoke. You have your 2 hours, Captain. Make them count. The bridge crew worked with intense focus. Every line of code was checked 3 times. Every drone modification was tested and retested. They had learned too much about the dangers of haste to rush now. Network interface ready, Tom reported after what felt like ages. Drones in position, Linda added. Safety protocols active, Jack confirmed. Walker looked at his crew. Tired, stressed, but professional to the core. Begin transmission. New code flowed into the ancient network. The purple anomalies pulsed in unison. The fate of the sector hung on whether human caution would once again prove stronger than warrior courage. The first response from the network began to come in, and every screen on the bridge lit up with ancient Crystal City code. Ancient symbols cascaded across the Prudence's screens as the Crystal City network responded to their commands. Every crew member held their breath, watching as thousands of years of dormant machinery awakened. Network connection stable, Tom reported, his fingers flying over his console. The engines are accepting our modified shutdown sequence. Linda monitored the drone feeds intently. Energy levels are shifting across all anomalies. They're responding as a single system. Through the main viewport, they could see the nearest purple mass-changing color, shifting from violent violet to a softer blue. The same change rippled across the sector as each engine responded to their commands. Incoming message from the Council, Jack announced. The warrior fleets are reporting similar color changes in all known anomalies. Walker nodded, watching the process carefully. Status of the network. Sir, Tom's voice was filled with wonder. The engines aren't just shutting down. They're fixing themselves. The network is using our shutdown sequence as a template to repair the damage from all those years. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the chaotic energy patterns stabilized. The destructive breakdown of matter stopped. In its place, precise beams of blue light began methodically rebuilding the destroyed stations at the atomic level. The Crystal Cities, Linda whispered. This is what their machines were supposed to do all along. Not destroy, but rebuild. A new alert sounded, but this time it wasn't an alarm. Ancient data began flowing into their computers. Technical readouts, design specifications, terraforming protocols. The Crystal City's engines were sharing their original purpose. Captain, Jack called out, the Council is requesting your presence. Immediately. Hours later, Walker stood once again in the great council chamber. But this time, there were no angry shouts, no demands for aggressive action. The warrior races sat in unusual silence as he gave his report. The engines are now fully under control, Walker explained. They've returned to their original programming, not destruction, but creation. The Crystal Cities left us a gift, buried in time. We just needed the patience to understand it. General Rock shifted uncomfortably in his seat. And what of the destroyed stations? The lost trade posts? Being rebuilt as we speak, Walker replied. The engines are repairing all the damage they caused. Once that's done, they'll enter a stable maintenance mode, ready to be studied, to be understood, carefully. Council Leader Marcus stood. Captain Walker, you and your crew have done more than save the sector. You've shown us all a different kind of courage. Not different, Walker corrected gently. Just, complete. Courage isn't just about facing danger, it's about facing it wisely. Young Grit, who had watched it all from the Prudence's bridge, stepped forward. My people have always valued warrior spirit above all else, but I have learned that there is great strength in human caution, in taking time to understand before acting. Admiral Swift ruffled her feathers thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge human methods, too eager to see caution as cowardice. Walker looked around the chamber, at the representatives of the galaxy's proudest warrior races. Being brave doesn't mean you can't be careful. Being strong doesn't mean you can't be smart. Sometimes, the greatest courage is having the patience to solve a problem properly. The council chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Centuries of warrior tradition were being reevaluated in light of what they had witnessed. Back on the Prudence, the crew continued their careful work, documenting everything they had learned about the Crystal City engines. Their cautious approach had not only saved lives, it had uncovered secrets that would benefit the entire galaxy. "You know," Linda said to Tom as they worked, "they might stop calling us cowards after this." Tom smiled, triple-checking his readings out of habit. "Maybe. But as long as our way keeps working, does it matter what they call us?" In the depths of space, the ancient engines hummed with renewed purpose, their blue light a testament to the power of human caution. They stood as a reminder that true courage comes in many forms, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take your time and do things right. The warrior races had learned a valuable lesson. In a galaxy full of dangers, there was room for more than one kind of courage.